I created the Musicolor Method actually because I just wanted to be a good dad. It wasn't something that was preordained or something I dreamt about. My son Alejandro was asking for music lessons for over a year since he was 3 years old. And then at 4, I said, well, I'll try to get you a teacher because I was doing other things. And I was doing film composing, music for commercials. But I studied to be a music teacher. So I figured, all right, I'll know what to look for in a good music teacher. And surprisingly, nobody wanted to accept him. And I was kind of shocked. I was like, they said, come back when he's 7 or 8. I called many people. It wasn't just like a one-off. And so I was like, this is very weird. So I actually started looking around in the music books, and I'm like, all right, there's got to be a way I can teach it to him because he's not going to wait for 4 years. He's so musical. I decided, okay, I'll make this like a homeschooling project, and he was very excited. So we started, and then I started to realize, oh my God, that's why nobody wanted to accept him, because the materials for teaching beginners, even beginners with cute pictures in the book and everything, it was just like too much abstract stuff before you can even make a sound. This is called, I was like, can't we just get to playing already? And then because I had spent 10 years in information design, I realized this is a design problem that I could solve. I kind of put 2 and 2 together and realized, all right, what does a young child know? This is what design thinking is about. What does your audience already know? What are they looking to do? And how can you get them there, right? So using direct labeling, I put colors on fingernails with magic markers. I put colors on piano keys. And then instead of any kind of fancy sheet music, I just took a colored marker and made boxes, colored boxes. And I said, do you see there's 6 red boxes? What do you think that means? And he's like, play the red key. It's like, with your red finger 6 times. And then I made a few of them longer. I said, what do you think that means? Well, you're going to play them longer? Exactly. So it's like the system started to teach without me even having to say, this is called a quarter note and this is a half note or whatever. And a lot of experiment. And probably like the first 8 years was just consistently trying new things every time. I had I have notebooks somewhere with all these old iterations that didn't work out. But it's a long-winded answer. I created something to be a good dad. He was 4. And then within a few months, I had a second student because his friend wanted to join, and then another student. So I started with his friends, and they would come over for play dates. So they'd come for a lesson, and then they would have a play date. And from there, within a year and a half, I think I had 20 students, and I couldn't take any more. And everyone just kept saying, I heard you teaching, and you wanted, and it was like, I was like, wow, okay. I wasn't fully committed to doing this yet. I was like, I still want to be a film composer, and I could do this for a few hours a week, but I want to do that. And then over time, it was actually something that I was enjoying, and I was seeing these transformations every day. So it was very fulfilling. Every time, I still have 3 personal students. And my wife, Monica, is always like saying, after every lesson, I'm like saying, oh my God, we had a great lesson today. She says, you've been saying that every day. And I know, I was like, it's really amazing because I studied to be a music teacher, but I didn't do it until it kind of called me back. Wow. So I realized this was a business, but I was failing at how I was doing it. So in the beginning, it was like kind of like I was just seeing it as like extra like pocket change or something. And I would charge, and they would pay me after the lesson, like in cash. And then over time, as I got to have like 15, 20, 25 students, I was realizing like when they would say, oh, we can't come this week because we're going away for the weekend. And I was like, oh my God, my credit card is due. I'm like, let me figure out how to make this more of a business. I'll sell them 10 packs, which was kind of good for a while. And then I realized, wait a second, I'm as a parent signing up Alejandro for these amazing summer camps that I'm signing up 6 months in advance, paying deposits, and then I pay the whole thing, and they just give me a calendar, and I'm fine with it. Why don't I do that for music? So, I mean, I know I can do it. I'm just making it a more predictable system, and that's started to be like, oh, okay, this has to be a real business. I was talking to a friend who had also started teaching and started a school at the same time. And he said, you really need to get your own business bank account. You can't just commingle all your money. And I was like, oh God, I hate numbers. I had to go through that painful thing of like teasing out the stuff. And then especially when I started hiring other teachers, because then I wanted to train other teachers because I had so many students. It was great. They would come back to my door every like 6 days a week. And it was like 3 to 7 p.m. or something. And then it was like, all right, I can't keep doing this. But still people were begging to be on my list. This one family, I taught the daughter, and then the brother was saying, please, I want to be, and I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. And his cousins were on my roster. And then, so it took him like 2 years to get on my list. But then it was like, he was so happy. And he flew. Yeah, it was great. That's a hard question because I felt like there was not a singular moment that just said, oh, this is it. It was like kind of like a gradual awakening. I keep enjoying what I'm doing. And I was like, I can't believe it. Another week of great lessons. Every student went forward. And I guess also I was getting less and less composing work. So that meant I had to raise some capital, some funds. I was basically the stay-at-home dad, but this was the perfect opportunity to grow a business while spending time with my son. I remember I joined a course. It was a course called Live Your Legend. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And there was this really young, amazing, inspiring guy who unfortunately tragically died like that year in a freak rock climbing incident. But his whole thing was basically you're living a smaller version of yourself, right? Now I had gone through Tony Robbins back in when I was 23 years old, like reading his books, which greatly changed my life. But then, over time, you just forgot about it. And then you wear yourself down. And so I started taking courses from 2015 till even today. I've been in coaching and courses because I was always like, oh, if I only knew this one thing, it's all going to work. But it's never that one thing, right? It's all these, like I first thought it was just this copywriting thing or this. If I only knew how to do this website thing, and I was trying to fix it all by myself. So last year I was in the program, Goldman Sachs, 10,000 Small Businesses. And that I think has been super transformative because it finally put all the pieces together. Because all these years I was doing these little niche dives and they all claim to have the answer, but it was never the holistic business. This program was foundational because it actually helped me see that I am doing a lot of things right, but if I missed this little piece here, and now that it's all together, I'm like, you know what? I'm a CEO. And then I've gone on to take courses with Tony Robbins, and I'm still doing coaching with his people, and that has been phenomenal. So I fully embrace that I've started a movement, and I am the world's leading authority in superpowers through music. And this is my mission in my life now, all because my son asked me to teach him music 20 years ago. Right now, I have a school here in Brooklyn that has 21 teachers. I just signed another one, so I have to count actually. And we currently work with, I think it's 124 students, and we don't actually have a building. We send the teachers to the student homes, and then we have 2 recitals a year in the public school. We rent it from the Department of Education. That's the reason why I've been thinking about how do I get to impact more kids outside of this tiny little neighborhood that I live in, which is a lovely neighborhood in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And that's become my mission, to impact at least 1 million kids first, and then on to 1 billion. How many now? I don't have a clear number right now, because I have taught teachers around the world. I probably should do a count at some point, but it's in the thousands. Yeah. So the books came about because some families were asking me, my cousin in California would be so into this. Do you have a teacher over there? I was like, no. And if we could only send them the book or something. I was like, oh, right, okay. So then I started to write these books, these song books, Piano for Kids, which there's actually 7 of them. There's volume 1 through 6, and then the holiday book. And then there's a book in Spanish. So there's 8 books, I guess. But I wrote them to be like as if the parent was learning at the same time as the child, like 2 steps ahead of them. They would read and they'd see the sheet music, which doesn't look like sheet music. They're colored blocks in the beginning. And it's even easier because a lot of parents still feel like they're not qualified. So what this is, they get the book, they get the stickers, they get the whole kit, but then they also have a little video from me to the parent saying, okay, this is what they're learning this week. Help them with this, look for that. And then there's a video from me to the kids saying, hey, it's me, Andrew, and put your right hand here and let's do this, right? So then it becomes a very easy 10-minute a day daily ritual that becomes a bonding moment for the parent and child, and is really about developing focus, confidence, emotional enrichment delivered through music. It doesn't matter if these kids ever go to play Carnegie Hall or get to play on the biggest stages in the world. It would be nice, of course, but that's not the goal. The goal is to use music as a personal development tool. That I feel very strongly about. And that's what I talk about in my book, Superpowers Through Music. I actually talk about how I started my journey with music in that book, because I was the only Asian kid in my neighborhood until my brother was born. And it was on Long Island, and they didn't know what to make of me, and either they thought I was part of the family that owned the single Chinese restaurant, which I was not. So there was a lot of misunderstanding and racism, and I was pretty lonely as a child. And when I was 14, actually the year before, 2 years before, I was 12, I discovered Kiss, the rock and roll band Kiss, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy amazing. I played their record over and over and over again. But I was like, man, if I could just do that. I was like, but it's too late. Everyone who started, somehow I thought everyone who started must have started when they were 5. I can never, ever get good enough to play in a band or anything. So I just kind of delayed it and delayed it. And one day I was like, maybe I can play harmonica. That's a little easier. You know, I can be like Mick Jagger and play harmonica. And I was like, I wasn't even singing. I was like, so I taught myself harmonica, amazingly, because they had a book. And I actually could read music because I was in the school band now playing alto sax. Not an instrument I loved, but I was like pining to play guitar. I was like, if I could only play guitar, that'd be so great, but it's too late, too late. And then one day, a kid that I knew when I was in kindergarten who had moved away, he came back to visit and he knocked on the door. I didn't even recognize him. There was a knock at the door. And I'm like, Frankie? And he's, hey. And he's got long hair and he's got this guitar case. I'm like, what is that? He takes out this beautiful guitar. And it was a Les Paul copy, not the real Les Paul, but probably like $100 knockoff, but still just gorgeous. And then he starts playing Stairway to Heaven, and I was like, and I was like, how did this happen? I was so shocked that that night, like my mom had an old folk guitar. I pulled it out and I was like, I want to learn this. I started practicing from that day on, like 8 hours a day, until the point where I got in trouble with my parents because I was always an A student, and then I dropped because I was playing so much guitar. So they banned guitar from me for 30 days one time. So what was crazy was that because I all of a sudden had this new outlet and this love of this music, like I loved all the blues rock bands, the Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, all these guys. It was all of a sudden I was being seen in a different light in my school. And all of a sudden I had new friends who were like, oh, he's not that weirdo Asian kid. He likes Led Zeppelin just like us. Oh, and did you ever hear him play guitar? And soon I became the guitar god of the school, of my grade at least. So it's kind of funny to say that. But I post videos to Facebook once in a while of me playing guitar with my band, and my old high school people come back and like, oh my God, just like high school. I would say the best age to start with music is any time before 7. Of course, it's never too late, but there's a time when a child's brain is just like absorbing and wiring in a way that is just like incredible. The same thing with language. Well, music is a language. So a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, perfect time. But only if you're using something like Musicolor Method. If you're trying to do traditional, it's very difficult until around 7 or 8. Of course, you'll have prodigies like Mozart, who seems like he just was born able to read music. But yeah, I would say even get him into clap along, sing along type Mommy and Me programs earlier, of which we are developing some. We have a program right now called Penguin Pals, which is a group music program. We have kids in there as young as 1 who are just, most of the time, they're just sitting there like listening and bopping their heads. But by the time they're 3, they're already starting to recognize colors. And then they start songwriting at 4, which is insane. I was like, that's possible. That's amazing. And then, playing a physical instrument, it's a lot to do with fine motor skills. But 4 years old, most kids have enough fine motor skills to play simple keyboard patterns. I would wait a little bit later for strings because it takes quite a lot of finger strength. I want to point out that a lot of people talk about starting with violin because they do make smaller ones. The problem with violin, it's like the tuning can drive people crazy. because you're going to be out of tune for the first year or two, 3 years, and you're going to hear that squeaking out of tune. I think it's just easier and better to start on the keyboard because you learn the basics of music visually. It's all laid out very logically. And then later on, you can switch to any other instrument. Before the age of 7, kids are forming their identity and they're forming the sense of what's possible. So the more you can feed a young child below 7, it's the better. It's like this, even like how big they can imagine is being formed at that moment. So it's the whole brain is just expanding exponentially, and everything from a sense of confidence, certain preferences of like, oh, I like this color and not this color, you know. I like this kind of music, I like this kind of food. All these things are, this whole sense of a person is being created between the ages of 0 and 7. It's super important to get that right. I think for too long, people have thought as music is just like performance skill to be a performer, right? But if you think about it as a personal development tool, it's a therapeutic tool too, right? It's like you're helping them make more connections in the brain, first of all, which then also helps them with their language, their math, their motor skills. But it also helps with connection, the sense of when you're singing a song together, you're playing a beat together, you're connecting with other people. And then like my growing up, having a preference for a kind of music, you have fast friends all of a sudden. It's like, oh, you heard that record? That's my favorite record growing up, right? You have like instant affinity. But there's so many things that music does, like from a medical standpoint, which I'm not a doctor, it's crazy how music rewires your brain and they use it as therapy. Like when that Senator Gabby Giffords got shot in the brain, she lost her ability to speak for a while. And they actually went through music therapy to rechannel, to rewire the brain to learn how to use other parts to do what that part used to do. It's just insane. It's like, if you think about music, it's a frequency, right? And we are all frequencies as well, right? So just think like we're getting in sync with good tones, good vibes, good vibrations. I see a lot of kids right now having screens as their best friends, and then even the parents are just giving a screen. Like you go to any restaurant in my neighborhood, there's a lot of families out to dinner. The kids are sitting there with a screen and headphones, and they're not participating at all in the family conversation, which is crazy, I think, because it's like, what is happening here is like we're losing our sense of family connection. Screen time is the last thing that even the creators of all these things, you ask the tech giants, the leaders of all these tech companies, their kids aren't allowed, screen time. Maybe they have a maximum of an hour a day or something, right? Screens are just destroying the ability to have long, deep focus and to be connected with people. So it's like having something like a music activity is a way to break that completely. In my lessons, I have a couple of students who are teenagers now, and I have to always remind them, put your phone on the other side of the room, because all of a sudden we're playing a piece and then a bing comes in and I'm like, like stop. Yeah, music is the perfect antidote to screen time, and you're exercising the muscle of prolonged focus. Unless a child is like physically unable to hear or feel like vibrations, I think anyone can learn music. There are many people who say they're tone deaf, and I think it's medically much smaller than people actually realize. I also have taught some voice students, and I had a guy come in one time. His wife bought him a gift certificate for singing lessons. I don't know why that happened. That's interesting. Maybe he was singing off key to her. So the first time he came in, I asked him to sing this note, and he was way off. And and he had another note. So then I started experimenting. I said, like, okay, let's like have you, like, I had the note da, and then he was like, oh, or something way down. I was like, okay, let's do like a siren, like just scoops up, and then as soon as you get to that note, I'm gonna like, and over time he would scoop up into the note, and it's over time he started to hear when he was accurate. And I was like saying, look, you're not tone deaf. It's just that you haven't exercised the listening part. Just the same thing as drawing is all about seeing. Right? People say they can't draw, but it's not because they can't draw. Anyone can draw. But if you've never looked carefully at, oh, that's a square, and that's a circle, that's basically the general shape. If I just draw that, then that's that. Same thing with music. It's like the pitch. It's like they just haven't practiced identifying where that is. And then over time, I think most people can hear pitch pretty fine and then match it. So singing is the original instrument, right? It's the one that you were born with. But even if you can't sing or you don't believe you can sing, you can play piano if you have fingers. You can play pretty much anything. So the difficulty with traditional music lessons is that they are assuming a basic set of knowledge and abilities in their ideal beginner student. The ideal beginner student for a traditional lesson has to be at least 8 years old, because you have to understand what a fraction is. And most kids aren't developmentally able to understand fractions and abstract concepts before around that age. It's like they're putting too much information to a child who's not ready for it yet, right? So what I've created is a process that I call sequence before skill. Like if you get the sequence right, then the skill will come later. Using my colors on the keys and labels, and I can get kids to play a song like within 3 minutes, right? They don't know that that's called a C. They don't know that that's a half note. They don't know that the rhythm they're doing is an eighth note. I was just clapping. I said, it's da, 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 da. Oh, can you do that? Yeah. Da, 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 da. Okay, now we're going to play it like that. Da, 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 right? Over time, they've already learned how to play maybe 20 songs. They say, that red note is called a C. It's like, oh, doesn't really mean anything at that point. But over time, we start bringing in the other concepts that traditional music comes with first. We do less explaining and more experiencing. And then later on, you're explaining what you've been doing already. And I think it's a more organic way of learning and how people actually really learn. You pick a fruit and you're eating it, you're like, this is delicious. I don't know what this is called, but it's delicious. And you're like, oh, that's an apple. I was like, oh, okay, good to know. Oh, fun is so important in learning, because otherwise, why do it? it's like a dopamine hit. It's like all your reward centers we're all about play. And we don't have enough play in our lives. Even in like a job when you're older, like if anyone says, hey, we're gonna play a game, all of a sudden you all light up. It's like, hey, we're gonna have to do this report. You're like, oh, I don't want to do that. We're gonna play a game. Fun is part of life, and I think it's the often the overlooked part of life. Kids sometimes shut down lessons, and you have to figure out why. It could just be that they've had a really bad day. Uh, it could be nothing to do with anything that you have done. But I think most of the times it's because there's cognitive load that is just too much all at once. And they say, I can't deal with it. It's like an overwhelm, right? So I was just talking to my student the other day. She's been working on this really long, hard piece. She's playing it very well. It's not perfect, but it's starting to come together. And I said, do you remember the first day I showed you this piece? She's like, yeah, oh my God. It was too hard. I looked at it because it was like, first of all, it's 4 pages. So she's like, it's too much. So that already shuts her down. And then like all these squiggly lines. And I was like, but then by breaking it down, we chipped away at it, and we started to realize, hey, look, this little piece that we figured out here also repeats here. So you already know that part. And this part is the same as that part, except for one note. I think cognitive overload is one of the biggest reasons kids shut down. And then there's also the other thing of fear of failure. There's kids who have been told their whole life, good job, for no reason at all, right? Oh, good job. And then it kind of becomes like, wow, I'm just good all the time. But if you're all of a sudden trying something and you're not so good, you don't want to even take the risk of not being good, right? So far more effective feedback for the parent or the teacher to give a kid is not good job, it's something specific like, I liked how you focused on that left-hand part right then and there. And you kept going even though it wasn't perfect. How did that feel, right? You don't praise just the beingness, you praise the effort, which anyone can do. When you look for a music teacher, I don't think knowing about their fancy debut at Carnegie Hall really matters all that much, or if they've gone to a conservatory. I think it's more important to see how they interact with your child, how much they're asking questions about your child, trying to build a rapport with your child. Of course, getting referrals from other students, families is good, but I think it's less about the official accolades and more about how are they interacting, and then what are they saying that actually is resonating with us. Like, I've had teachers who have master's degrees and PhDs, and they have like 2 students, and they can't figure out why can't they get more students. And then I say, so what do you tell your potential customers? Say, well, take a look at my website. So I look at the website, and it's like, first of all, they have a photo of them being all serious, and then there's like all these things about, I toured with this person, I toured with that person, I've been studying since I was 4 at the conservatory, and there's nothing about like, what is my view on teaching? How am I going to help? What can I expect in the first month? It's all about them and not about asking about you, right? It's so important to have early wins for any new student in anything, because otherwise they're going to quit right away, right? You're like, this is too hard. Like if you went bowling and you just went to the gutter every time, you're never going to go bowling again, right? So they put the gutter guards, and you throw the ball and it goes straight, and you're like, oh my God, I can do this. So it's like designing a way to have lots of little wins. You're going to keep the student engaged, and besides like getting these confidence boosts, they're actually starting to learn skills because they're repeating it. You're rewarding the repetition. Oh, music can greatly help with confidence, because to perform something that you can then share with others is such a satisfying experience. you feel like, wow, I did this. I can do this, right? And I've seen it in so many students who come in and they can't do anything, and then they walk out of the lesson and I was like, I did this. I can play this song, right? Music is a great way to build confidence. Yeah, music is great for just about anybody, but for those who are neurodivergent, who learn in different ways, it can actually be a way of reaching the child in a different way. You know, like so much of school is so much about focus and being very much like in these little rigid boxes, whereas music is something that you can feel, right? We've had great success with teaching nonverbal students even, and because we've made this color system that bypasses language, it's so rewarding to see that they can actually do this, and they're communicating through the music, right? It's really beautiful. So we've taught kids on the autism spectrum disorder, kids who are dyslexic. There's kids with Down syndrome. We had a student, I forget what they call it when there's the left and the right brain are split between it. Like genetically, it was never connected. So they learn much slower. And using our colors, it was still a successful way to teach music and very rewarding. I think the special needs kids, there's not really anything else that I've seen out there that can actually help them learn music than our Musicolor method. Well, I started when I was 5, my mom put me in a class to teach me guitar. It was like a group class. And it was terrible because they didn't know how to teach a 5-year-old guitar. And I was struggling just to do the first lesson. So then after that, I quit because it's like, they try to start me on a D chord. I was like, now I know it. The D chord's a really hard chord. That was like the first lesson. I was like, okay. But my mom sang to me all the time. My dad loved to sing. They played music all the time. So I think it was 4th grade. Yeah, we had the 4th grade band. My mom said, I want you to sign up for band. So I go to school and I said, my mom wants me to take clarinet. And the director says, I have too many clarinets. Here, take a sax. I'm like, what's a sax? He said, here it is, this thing. And I was like, oh, this is weird. It's heavy. It smells funny. I came home with it, and my mom was like, oh, sax is nice. You can play jazz. And I was like, okay. I played sax for 8 years. I didn't love it, but I was in the marching band. I was in the jazz band. I was in the concert band. I learned how to read music in school. But then when I was 14, when I discovered guitar and then I could teach myself guitar, I used some of that knowledge. I bought myself the Lennon-McCartney guitar course, and I went lesson by lesson. And that wasn't an easy book also, but because I knew how to read music already, it was easy for me. I wouldn't recommend that as the start for most kids. So then within 6 months, I was teaching other people guitar because someone asked me, it's like, you're playing guitar? How'd you do that? I was like, oh, I'll show you. And I was like, hey, you want to give me $5 for that lesson? It's like, it became my business, like immediately. And then by the time I was 16, I was hooked. I was in bands. I really, really wanted to be like a rock star. And to the dismay of my Tiger parents, like my dad was like, you're gonna be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. And that spell was broken one day when I met with a social worker who was teaching me some guitar on the side for free. But then I was practicing 9 hours a day, and I applied to NYU I applied to a lot of schools, but NYU gave me an almost full scholarship as long as I was at least double majored in the education program, because they were trying to get more music teachers. I didn't care about that. I was like, I'm going to drop out. I'm going to join Ozzy Osbourne's band and I'm going to tour. It's funny because I studied music education and jazz performance, and then after 2 years, I moved into music business and technology, and now I actually am doing both music business and music education. How do you know if your kid's ready for a lesson? I would say if they know their ABCs, they can count to 20, they can sit still for at least 5 minutes doing one thing. They maybe can pick up small objects with their fingers, maybe write their name sort of legibly. That's pretty good because then we can do a lot of things at the keyboard. Of course, I'm talking about someone who's like 4. Generally by 5 or 6, they're ready, unless they have special needs or something. Music is so great for connecting families just because you can also all listen to it together. You can dance, you can sing, and then you can learn how to make music together. We used to have a little basket of like shakers and musical objects, and they would all like shake along and sing along to something. That's super fun. It's connection and joy. I would say music is life. It's the vibration that goes through all of us. I think everybody likes music. I've met maybe 2 people in the world that have never bought a record and never actually turned on music, which was very strange. I couldn't believe that was the case. And I think we all, if you play music, you see people start moving to it. They even have videos on YouTube of cows moving to music. Like they come from the whole pasture because they heard musicians playing. I mean, that's just so beautiful. I think some of the things that music can give your child are focus, confidence, resilience, ability to recognize patterns, to be more socially aware, like when to step forward, when to step back, harmonizing or taking the lead, right? There's so many superpowers you can get through music. So I think teachers who want to work with younger kids, this is an amazing opportunity for them because it's very difficult using traditional tools to reach somebody who those tools were not meant to be used with them. And it's so rewarding because when you have kids who are preschool, it's so different because they have so much more time and they're so enthusiastic that you are really shaping them into a person. So if you have a strong bond with them at that age, you can often keep them with you on this long musical journey for 10, even 15 years until they go to college. And then maybe when they come back too. It's a great way to also expand your business, because if you're only looking for older advanced students, there's a lot less of them than complete beginners. I've tried to make it as easy as possible to replicate my business here in New York. We have a 6-figure business here. And even when I was a solo teacher in my living room, I was making a very comfortable full-time salary part-time. I've made 2 levels. I made an entry level I call the Musicolor Coach Level 1, and that allows you to teach the first 2 phases of our color method for your youngest students, and that is a great way to enter our world. And then I have the growth track, which is the full-on, larger, basically all of our teaching materials I've created for piano, guitar, ukulele, violin, viola, the Penguin Pals group class for preschoolers, and as well as the use of the trademark logo and the systems that we've created. Now, it's not a franchise. We have a franchise level too, where then you are running a branded Musicolor Method location. And that means we would support you with marketing. We give you our whole system. And that's a different kind of engagement completely. So that's the highest level. And the lowest level is Musicolor Coach level 1. So I think teachers who are open-minded to new ways of teaching are the best candidates for working with us. You can't come in being too full. Like I'm going to be pouring a lot into you, and then if you're too full, it's going to just spill all over, right? You have to be coachable. And I'm not saying that I know all and I'm the know-it-all in the room. I'm giving you another way of doing things that has been proven to be very successful for many, many people. So if you're open to that, then that would be great. I did notice that most of my best teachers coming from the worlds of jazz and pop, rock, more improvisational areas of music. I do have a few classical teachers, but in a way, they have to unlearn some of the classical ways of doing things. We very much think of it as that you're like a coach guiding, whereas the old school traditional methods are much more top down, like I am the maestro and you know nothing, and I am judging you every moment. It's a different way of doing things. The teachers who are best suited to working with Musicolor Method are those who want to have more students, first of all, especially younger students. You'll have a ton of materials to help you with this age group, and you'll have support from me and my team. You'll have a community of other Musicolor teachers that you can also ask questions of and learn from. There's books. Everything is now in a physical book, so there's different levels of books. My latest book is Superpowers Through Music, and it's part memoir, part manifesto, and part method, because I start out with my story of how I ended up in music, also about how my son steered me into this educational world. So then I start talking a little bit about the superpowers that any child who goes through this journey can gain from music. And then I also give some details on our Musicolor Method, how it works, what it looks like, and then next steps on how to get involved, whether you're a teacher or a parent or a grandparent, or even just an administrator at an after-school program. The vision for Musicolor Method is to make early childhood music a standard in the world, delivered through Musicolor Method, reaching first 1 million kids and then 1 billion, to shift the perception that music is purely entertainment, that music is really personal development and that anyone can do it. Music is fun, and it should be joyful. There's too many times I've seen people turn it into being a very serious thing. I remember coaching some early Musicolor teachers, and I would send them my videos of my lessons, and they would say, "I can't believe how much you guys laugh in your lessons." I was like, "What? You don't laugh in your lessons? Why are you so serious? This is so fun. Music is joy." Even in a Facebook forum of music teachers, I was shocked because they were saying like that they don't listen to music for fun anymore. It was like, oh my God, that's incredible. I don't stop listening to music all day. It just fills you with so much joy. Other people use music, even, you know, famous athletes use music as personal development. You know, Michael Phelps, if you ever watched him before he goes for a swim, he's listening to his soundtrack of greatness. He has specific songs in a specific order that put him into an emotional, mental, physical peak state so that he can totally rock it. And of course, Tony Robbins, the developmental genius, he uses music in all of his training. So if you ever go to one of his events, you'll be dancing because you're getting into peak state, and it's delivered through music. So we can use music more than just sitting back as a passive listener. We can use it to ramp yourself up, to teach yourself things, to teach your kids things. Reggaeton? Oh, I guess there's different flavors of music that people like, right? I like some reggaeton, but it's gotten tired.
We're recording that now.
Yeah, I love Bomba Estéreo. Oh, they're so good. The first time I heard them, I was like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah.